Hey guys, my name is Tom and welcome back to my networking tutorial series. If you haven't seen the first part, make sure to go check that out because today we'll be building on that to allow data to be sent between the clients and the server. If you get stuck or run into problems, make sure to check out my Discord server where you can ask for help and share your progress. I've also created a repository on GitHub, which I'll be adding to with every video, so you can compare your code to that and double check that you've done everything correctly. I'll leave links to both of those in the description below. We're going to start by making it possible for the server to send data to clients, so open up Visual Studio and create a new class called Packet. Writing this class from scratch could take up a whole video on its own, so instead we're going to copy and paste it. I'll leave a link to the code on GitHub down below. When you're sending data over the network, you can't just send an int or a bool or a string. You can only send bytes, which are the building blocks for all of those data types. This Packet class provides a few handy methods to convert various data types to bytes, and then it stores those bytes in a list so you can send them all at once. For example, this overload of the write method takes an int as its parameter, and all it does is convert the int to a list of bytes, which it then adds to the buffer. Converting the bytes back to the desired value type is a little more complex. If we look at the method that does this for ints, if there are bytes that we haven't read yet, we take the next set of bytes from the list and convert them to an int. If move read pos is true, we increase the packet's read position by 4. The read position tells us which bytes in the packet we've already converted and which ones are next. If the byte list's length is less than the read position, that means there's no bytes left to read and this method shouldn't have been called, so we throw an exception. That's a relatively brief summary of how this class works, but I've included quite a few comments, so feel free to poke around a little. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the comments down below. Next, we'll create another class. Call this one server send. In this class is where you want to define all the methods to create the various packets you'll be sending over the network. Let's create our first packet to send to clients. I'll call this method welcome because it'll create a welcome packet. It'll take in two parameters, an int to tell us which client to send the packet to, and a string representing the message to send over. Since our packet class inherits from iDisposable, we need to make sure to dispose it when we're done with it. To do this, we could call the packet's dispose method at the end, or we can define our packet instance inside a using block. This will automatically dispose it for us, and it's simply much cleaner. When creating a packet which we want to send, we need to make sure to pass it an ID. For this one, we'll use serverpackets.welcome. Then we'll write the message to the packet, followed by the client's ID. At the end, we'll call the send TCP data method and pass it the client ID and the packet instance. Since this method doesn't exist yet, we'll create it now. This one can be private, and obviously it'll take in an int and a packet. This method is in charge of preparing the packet to be sent, so we'll call its writeLength method. This will basically take the length of the byte list that we want to send, and it'll insert that at the beginning of the packet. If you forget to call this method, you won't be able to handle the data properly on the client. Directly after that, we'll grab the client we want to send the packet to, and call his sendData method, which we'll create next. Open up the client class and right above the receive callback method, add a public void sendData with a packet parameter. Inside, add a try catch block to catch any errors that might occur when trying to send data. Before we send anything, add an if statement to make sure that our socket field has a value assigned. Then call stream.beginRead and pass it the byte array returned by packet.toArray, 0 as the offset, the packet's length as the length, and null for both the async callback and the object state. In the catch, we'll simply write the exception to the console. Now go back to the server send class and call the client's sendData method and pass it our packet instance. We're also going to add two methods, one that sends a packet to all connected clients and another that sends a packet to all connected clients except one. We won't use either of these today, but we'll need them in the future. Finally, we need to actually call our welcome method, which we'll do at the end of the client class's connect method. Pass it the client's ID and any string you like. I'll just say welcome to the server. That's it for sending data from the server. Now let's receive data on the client. In Unity, we need to create 3 new scripts. We'll call these client handle, packet, and thread manager. To make sure we don't forget, attach the thread manager script to your client manager game object. Threading is quite a complex topic with a lot of things that can go very wrong. It can produce inconsistent errors, which makes them very hard to debug, so we're going to keep things simple by running everything on the same thread. Once again, in an effort to keep this video as short and as on topic as possible, we're going to copy and paste some code. You can find the link to the thread manager class in the description. This class will allow us to schedule code to run on one specific thread, which will help us avoid any unforeseen errors. In order to fix the errors that pop up, we need the system namespace. Since we won't be using system.collections, we can simply delete the collections part. Now open up your server code again and copy-paste the packet class to the client. In order to fix the errors, add the system and system.text namespaces at the top. You can also use Visual Studio's quick actions and refactorings functionality to do this for you. Now open up the client handle class and delete everything inside. Add a public static void method with a packet parameter. It's super important to read values from the packet in the same way that we wrote them, otherwise you'll run into issues. On the server, we added the string to the packet first, followed by the int. To ensure that everything works as intended, we'll read them out in the same order. First the string, then the int. Once we have our values, we'll debug.log the message we received, and we'll set the client's myID field. We'll also send a packet back to the server, but we'll do that a little later in the video. Now comes the part that is arguably the most complicated of this entire setup, the handling of data. First, we need to add a private packet field called received data to the client's TCP class, and then we need to initialize it in the connect callback method. Here's where it becomes confusing. I'll do my best to explain, but keep in mind that you don't need to understand everything right away. It took me months of working with this multiplayer stuff before it really clicked for me. In our received callback method, right before we call stream.beginRead, we want to call received_data.reset. This will take in the boolean returned by the handleData method, which we'll create next. Whether or not the received data packet gets reset depends on the value returned by handleData. Our server and client are communicating through a commonly used protocol called TCP. This protocol is stream-based, meaning it sends a continuous stream of information. It will ensure that all packets we send are delivered and in the correct order. While the chunks of data being sent over are guaranteed to arrive, they aren't guaranteed to be delivered in one piece. Basically, when we send a packet, it will be added to a larger list of bytes, and once enough bytes accumulate, they're sent in one bigger delivery. TCP leaves it up to us to handle cases where a packet is split between two deliveries, which is why we don't always reset received bytes. There could still be a piece of a packet in there that we haven't handled yet because the rest of it hasn't arrived. If we were to reset received bytes then, we would be throwing away data, which will result in us losing packets. All of that might make a little more sense once we implement it. Create a private method called handleData, which takes in a byte array and returns a boolean. Then create a local variable called packetLength and initialize it to 0. After that, we'll set received data's bytes to the bytes we just read from the stream. Next, we need to check if received data contains more than 4 unread bytes. If it does, that means we have the start of one of our packets, because an int consists of 4 bytes, and the first data of any packet we send is an int representing the length of the packet. We want to store that length, so assign it to packetLength. Then we'll check if the packet length is less than 1, in which case we'll want to return true, because we want to reset received data. Below, add a while loop that checks if the packet length is greater than 0, but less than the length of the unread bytes in received data. As long as this while loop is running, it means that received data contains another complete packet which we can handle. Inside, we'll read that packet's bytes into a new byte array. Since the code we're currently writing won't necessarily be run on the same thread, we're going to call our thread manager's execute on main thread function, inside which we'll create a new packet and read out its ID. Before we can use that ID to call the method corresponding to it, we need to create a delegate called packetHandler and a dictionary to store the packet IDs and their corresponding packet handler. At the bottom of the client class, we'll add a method to initialize our dictionary. Back in the handleData method, we can now grab the appropriate packet handler using our packet ID, and we can invoke it, passing it the packet instance. After that, we'll reset the packet length to 0, and we'll copy and paste the if statement from above into our while loop. Outside of the while loop, we'll return true to reset received data if the packet length is 1 or less. If the packet length is greater than 1, we don't want to reset received data because there's a partial packet left in there. Finally, we'll call the initializeClientData method in the client's connect method. And we'll add a debug.log at the end of initializeClientData, which I forgot to do earlier. Then start up the server, hit play in Unity, and press the connect button. You should see the welcome message displayed in the console. Now that we can send information to clients from the server, let's make it possible for clients to respond. First, create a new script called client_send, open it up, and delete everything inside. We'll add a private static method called sendTCPData, which will prepare packets to be sent just like on the server. Inside, we'll call the packet's writeLength method to insert the packet's length at the start, and then we'll call the client's sendData method passing in the packet. Next, we'll create a public static method called welcomeReceived, and this will simply create the packet we want to send to the server once the client receives the welcome message. Let's create a new packet inside a using statement and pass it the client packets.welcomeReceivedID. Then we'll write the client's ID to the packet so that the server can confirm that the client claimed the correct ID. Finally, call the sendTCPData method and pass it the packet. We're currently getting an error because the client doesn't have a sendData method yet. Let's fix this by creating one. In the client class, add a public method called sendData which takes in a packet instance. Create a try-catch block, and just like on the server, we'll check if the client's socket field has a value assigned before calling its beginRead method. Pass in the value returned by packet.toArray as the buffer, 0 as the offset, the packet length as the length, and null as the async callback and the object state. In the catch, we'll simply debug.log any errors we get. Now open the client handle class and call client_send.welcomeReceived at the end of the welcome method. That's it for the client sending functionality, so let's move on to handling data on the server. Back in the server code, let's add a class called serverHandle. Inside, create a public static welcomeReceived method with parameters for the ID of the client who sent the packet and the packet itself. Again, we need to make sure to read out the data in the same order that we wrote it into the packet. If you look back at our client's code, you'll see we first wrote an int followed by a string. We'll read these out the same way, first the client's ID, then his username. Now that we have our values, let's write a message to the console to let us know that we successfully received a message from the client. Then we'll double check to make sure the client has claimed the correct ID. This message should never be printed to the console, but if it is, you know something went very wrong. Similarly to the client, the server needs a way to decide which packet method to call based on the packet ID that it receives, so let's create another delegate called packet handler. However, this one will have an ID parameter in addition to the packet parameter. Again, we need a dictionary to keep track of our packet handlers, so add that as well. Now initialize the dictionary in our initializeServerData method. Finally, we need to actually handle the data we receive, so let's take care of that. In the client's TCP class, add a private packet field called ReceiveData and initialize it in the connect method. Since the handleData method is identical to the client's, we can simply copy and paste it over. Then in the receiveCallback method, call ReceiveData.reset and pass in the value returned by our handleData method. To fix the error, copy the contents of the client's ThreadManager class, create a new class on the server called ThreadManager, and paste the contents into that. Then delete the update method, since that's only available in Unity, and change the debug.log to a console.writeLine. To fix the other error, change packet handlers to server.packetHandlers and pass in the client's ID before the packet. And we're done, right? If we start the server now and connect the client, you'll notice that the message that should be displayed when we handle the welcome received packet isn't actually shown in the console, which means that something is wrong. The reason this isn't working is because we never call our ThreadManager's update main method. We are in fact receiving the packet, but since we want to handle it on our main thread, the code for doing so is added to the queue, except we never actually run the code in the queue. Since we don't have access to Unity's update method on the server, we'll create a game loop. Let's create a new class called GameLogic. Add a public static method called update and called ThreadManager.updateMain from inside it. Back in our program class, delete the call to console.readKey at the end. We don't need that anymore. At the top, add a private static boolean called isRunning and set it to true inside the main method. We're going to create a new thread to run our game loop on, so we'll need the system.threading namespace. Now create a new thread and pass it a new thread start instance. Give the thread start constructor a method called mainThread, which we'll add in a moment. Then call the thread start method. Now create a private static method called mainThread. We'll use this to run our game loop. First, let's print a message to the console to let us know that the thread has started. We want our server to run on a tick system. The same way Unity's fixed update method is called a specific number of times per second regardless of frame rate, we want our server's update loop to run consistently. To do this, we'll need a few constant values, so let's define those in a class called constants. Add two public constant ints, one representing the number of ticks per second, I'll set mine to 30, and the other representing how many milliseconds are in one tick. Back in the program class, we can now actually set up the game loop. First, let's create a new local datetime object to store the exact time of when the next server tick should be executed. Now add a while loop to check if isRunning is true, inside which we'll nest a second while loop that checks if the time has come to execute another tick. In there is where we can finally call gameLogic.update. Then we need to update the time of when the next tick should happen. We'll do this by using datetime's addMilliseconds method, to which we'll pass constant.ms per tick. Now start up the server, and you should see a message letting you know our game thread has started. Switch back to Unity, enter play mode, and hit the connect button. And there we go, the packet from the client is being properly received on the server. However, there's one thing left to do. You'll notice that when we run the server right now, my diagnostics show that it's using 7% of my CPU, which is quite high. Luckily, this is easy to reduce. The usage is so high right now because in between ticks, the thread is sitting there with nothing to do, which causes it to use an unexpected amount of processing power. I'm not entirely sure why this is the case, but it's simple to fix. After we update our next loop value, add an if statement to check if it's in the future. We want to check this because in the case of the server falling behind, it may need to execute multiple ticks much quicker to catch up. Inside the if statement, we'll simply put the thread to sleep until it's time to execute the next tick. If we run the server now, it should be using much less of your CPU. As you can see, my usage has dropped so low that it displays as 0%. And of course, if we connect our client, everything still works. That's it for this tutorial. If you found it helpful, please take a moment to smash the like button, as it really helps out my channel. If you got stuck at some point, check out the code on GitHub and come join us on Discord. Links are in the description. In the next part of this series, we'll be adding UDP support to our networking solution, so consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified as soon as I upload that. With that said, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again next time.